Preventing cross-contamination from allergen foods in restaurant kitchens. When someone has a food allergy, their immune system essentially misidentifies a harmless food, like peanuts or eggs, as dangerous. The body creates IgE antibodies, which are like internal alarm systems. That's called sensitization. Later, if the person eats that food again, their body releases chemicals like histamine to fight it off, even though it's not actually harmful. Cross-contamination happens when allergen foods come into contact with other foods by accident, like through the same cutting boards, utensils, or even cooking surfaces. This can happen while preparing, cooking, or even storing food. There are 3 different types of contamination that we can examine. The first is food-to-food contamination. An example of this is when peanut butter cookies are baked on the same tray as chocolate chip cookies. The next example is equipment-to-food contamination. A blender being used to make a smoothie with whole milk isn't washed properly before making another one. Person-to-food contamination consists of a staff member making something containing eggs and they don't wash their hands before making something else. Cross-contamination becomes more prevalent when employees or staff are not properly trained. It's also a major concern because it can easily go unnoticed and they have very serious consequences. Communication gaps and unclear ingredient labeling can make this issue even worse. The risk can be greatly increased when rushing to prepare food or when a head chef fails to communicate information about allergens with other kitchen staff. It's important that cross-contamination is addressed because even a small trace of ingredients can lead to life-threatening reactions, such as skin reactions, breathing issues, gastrointestinal problems, and circulatory issues. In severe cases, death can occur. To add to this problem, food allergies have increased in prevalence over the past few decades, and without close attention to cross-contamination and what each staff member is doing, we can't prevent cross-contamination.
We chose this restaurant staff because they have direct control over our food safety. One mistake, like cross-contact, can lead to life-threatening reactions and legal consequences for the business. Studies show many staff aren't fully trained on allergens and need more education. Kitchens move fast, so they need simple, quick guidelines they can follow under pressure. Visual reminders like posters and checklists help keep safety top of mind. Our goal is to get them to follow allergen protocols consistently, not just when it's convenient.
In order to address the issue of cross-contamination, you guys, the restaurant staff and management, should implement the following protocols. You should have mandatory staff training. Make sure that your staff is always up to date on your safety and health protocols in order to avoid any confusion or accidents. Another way to avoid any confusion or accidents is by having allergen-free zones. These are areas where the chef can safely prepare meals that don't contain any of the allergens. Now, you might be wondering, why should I have to follow these protocols? And the thing is, you have to understand that in order to run a successful business, especially something like a restaurant, you have to cater to your audience, aka your customers. If people are walking in, but they might be allergic to something, the least you can do as the service provider is ensure that they have access to food that was made separately from whatever could potentially harm them. Because allergens need to be taken seriously. It's not just something that's going to give them a sneeze or a cough. It is something that can trigger anaphylaxis and potentially hospitalize and kill them. You're wondering how you're supposed to implement some of these protocols, but the thing is, it's actually quite easy. In terms of the training, when you're hiring or interviewing, you can kind of run through the process of how your kitchen runs so that the person is already going to be familiar with it before their first day. And then even on their first day, you can have a training process kind of walking them through how your kitchen is run and how your restaurant operates. And all of that is going to contribute to helpful conversation and communication between your kitchen staff, your chef, and the servers who then handle the food afterwards, aka following a chain of custody. From the first person who picks up the ingredient to the last person who hands the plate to the customer, there should be a clear and open communication so that everybody knows who's handling the food, who has touched the plate, and all of that is going to help mitigate any risks and any cross-contamination that might come with the food handling process. The reason all of this is so important is because there's about 250,000 emergency room visits annually, and those visits are triggered by food allergic reactions, and about 50% of them come from restaurants. You do not want to be a part of that 50%. So, by implementing all of these protocols, you can help reduce the risks that come with eating out at restaurants and the roughly 150 deaths that come from food-induced anaphylaxis.
This handout shows how serious food allergies are, impacting 32 million Americans. It provides clear steps and a quick checklist to keep safety easy and routine. The aim is to reduce risks while protecting both the customer and the restaurant. The checklist covers key actions like hand washing, using separate equipment, keeping allergen-free zones clean, clear communication, labeling, and regular training to stay sharp and consistent. Lastly, we focus on 3 public health concepts: health literacy, making sure staff understand allergens and protocols; risk communication, so everyone, staff and customers, are on the same page; and behavior change, to promote long-term adherence to safety measures.
Preventing cross-contamination contamination of allergen foods is not simply a best practice, it is an ethical imperative, a legal necessity, and a powerful business differentiator. Let's commit today, as managers and chefs, to turn the kitchen around and make it a sanctuary for every customer, because with rigorous allergen control, every meal can be both delicious and worry-free.